YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with the quarterback rankings halfway through the 2023 season, ranking every single team starting quarterback from 32 to 1 based on this season only, halfway through the year. So the past, future does not matter at all. Felt really good about these. Usually I kind of got to sit there and argue with myself, like, does this guy go here or there? Everyone fell right into place. These are where these quarterbacks belong halfway through the year. We can update these at the end of the season. They'll definitely change by that point. We'll have a bunch of those halfway through the season type videos coming out over the next 2 weeks. I'll update my playoff predictions as well. So excited about all that. Trade deadline grades on the channel, power rankings, weekly picks. We got you guys covered. Like, subscribe to notifications on, follow us on Twitter. A lot going on there. Always talking with you guys. Links been in the comments for that and our sponsors, Liquid IV, GLD Shop, giveaway going on with the GLD Shop with jewelry, NFL jewelry, and more. Again, links pinned in the comments for all that. So starting at the bottom, Daniel Jones going to come in at 32. A couple factors here. Well, not playing some games definitely factors in as well. I'd predict if he played every game, I probably wouldn't have him at 32. So that was kind of the thing that bumped him down there. But he's also been playing pretty bad. His offensive line's been awful. He's had no time to throw, but there's been opportunities here and there. He knows he has to adjust, and he's got to know, like, all right, I don't have any time. Ball's got to come out quick, and he hasn't really adjusted. So both things could be true. Offensive line, awful, and Daniel Jones, awful. And all of a sudden, when Tyrod Taylor was in there, he seems better. Everything seems smoother with the offense. It almost seems like the pass protection's better, and because he's getting the ball out quicker, so that kind of further proves the point. So Jones has been struggling, but if he's healthy, he's in there every game, and the offensive line plays like it is right now, which is not good, but better than it was, then I'm sure he'll finish the year better than 32. He better with that contract, so that's a little rough. Ryan Tannehill starting to miss some games now, and this is recorded before. I got ahead of myself on this one, but recorded before the Thursday game. So the Thursday game between the Titans and Steelers has no play into this here, but Tannehill, and he's not going to play anyway. It's going to be Will Levis, but yeah, Tannehill's been struggling. He hasn't really had any moments where he's like god awful, like really, really bad moments. Like some of these other guys ahead of him had some really bad moments, but at the same time, he's had bad moments, and he's just not getting the job done. And he kind of was made to look worse when Will Levis came in too, because there's a lot of firsts. Like the first time the Titans scored 28 points or that many points. The first, Levis already has more touchdowns than Tannehill on the year. The first time Hopkins scores a touchdown, who's been fantastic, at the same time he scores 3 touchdowns. First time they're airing the ball successfully downfield, so it's not the best look for Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, the touchdown interception ratio doesn't play every part, but it doesn't look great there. So he's definitely on the decline. Definitely kind of that washed up. I hate to use that term. But Desmond Ridder at 30. I mean, he's won some games, but I don't know if it's really because of him. The rest of the team looks really good. If they had a decent quarterback, and now they're making the change this week, it sounds like they put in Heineke at the end of this last game against the Titans. But we'll see. But, if Ridder can ever get back into action, we'll see. But yeah, he's taken games away from the Falcons, and that is a big no when it comes to quarterback. You want a quarterback that is going to win games. You want to find a good enough quarterback, that's the goal, that can single-handedly win games. Your Patrick Mahomes, your Josh Allens, Joe Burrow, all these guys, Jalen Hurts. And he's doing the complete opposite, so you would think, like, you thought Ridder coming out, like, with that Falcons Arthur Smith offense, he could be a game manager. He's not doing that either. He got maybe some flashy moments here and there, sorta, but he's taken games away from the Falcons. He's actually tried to take wins away from them that they did not lose as well. So it's been kind of prone to turnovers. So maybe a little more productive than Tannehill and Jones. He's played every game up to this point. So that kind of keeps him from being, at the very bottom. Zach Wilson, has struggled a little bit. I thought he's kept his team from scoring more, which, ultimately would have won. Their defense puts them in position and winning. But he's actually found some, a lot of it's the defense, but found ways to win this past week with the Giants. I guess I did enough in the Eagles game, which is a big win. So I guess he's done enough at times, but there is a lot of bad moments where he's not seeing wide open receivers, which could result in the Jets winning or winning big. dropping too far back, taking some bad sacks, just being off target, being a little bit in his own head a little bit too much. But he definitely has been better than the three guys listed below him. I just think if the Jets had Aaron Rodgers, or not even Aaron Rodgers, if they had a decent quarterback, they would be looking like a decent quarterback. They'd probably be close to top of the AFC. If they had Aaron Rodgers, it's an assumption, but based on how things are going throughout the rest of the AFC, I think they can be the very best team in the AFC, or maybe football. So we'll see if we're ranking Rodgers at the end of the year. Probably not, because he'll probably only if he does come back in the regular season, which sounds like he's going to come back, but if he does come back, it'll probably only be a couple games here. The next group of guys, Jimmy Garoppolo at 28, which he's had moments that's looked good, but he's had moments that's looked very bad, and he's had the injuries pop up. Didn't start the Chargers game, got taken out of another game. Didn't start the Bears game, so he has those. Again, he has good moments that are better than the guys listed below him, but the last game was brutal too. Was getting pressured instantly, but was not adjusting, wasn't getting the ball out. He comes at 28. Jordan Love at 27. He's a tricky one to I think he falls right in at 27. There's really no debate for me at least. I think he falls right in at 27, but it's a little tricky, I say, because in the first couple games, he looked pretty promising. Like, he looked smooth. He was going through his progressions. I think teams started to game plan a little properly for him and found out his weaknesses, because he's really struggled recently. Like, the trend, like the way he's trending is like, if we at the end, if we fast forward to the end of the season when I do these rankings, he's probably gonna be worse than 27. But unless he can change things, but yeah, he's struggling to read defenses. He's struggling to get the ball out. There's a lot of situations where he's like, he kind of thinking too much. Do I run? Do I try to throw it? I think he's starting to get afraid to try to fit it in a tight window. There's a lot of moments where it kind of looks pretty up until where you see the ball land. There's actually a lot of moments like that. So I guess maybe that kind of gives you some optimism where it's like, all right, the setup looks pretty good if we can kind of work on him finishing. So that's kind of the one thing that says maybe with him, but there's not a whole lot of optimism. You can't really be too optimistic with him, because he's almost gotten worse as teams started to game plan from. That's where you really look at quarterbacks. There's going to be a proper game plan for every single quarterback who's going to find a way around or find a way through it. So he hasn't really done that in his young career. Mac Jones at 26. Now, he's been productive through the air. He's starting to play a little bit better recently, so maybe he'll start to climb. But he's been productive, like airing it out, passing yards, some touchdowns. He's been productive in a bad way with the interceptions, though, as well. And that's the thing with him. I think some of the losses are on him. I do think so. And his offensive line had a stretch of struggles, and his receivers had some struggles. I thought Kendrick Bourne was playing well. He just got injured, during last week's game, unfortunately. But so I guess maybe he hasn't had the most help in the world, but he is off target. He is throwing some bad interceptions. I do think he's productive, but I do think he's kind of taking games away. Again, teams are looking for quarterbacks that can single-handedly go win, and there's not a whole lot of them like that. But then the rest of them are kind of in the, they can be a game manager. They can make big plays here and there. But there are some quarterbacks that are doing the opposite of all that. They are kind of giving games away, so you don't love to see that. So when you look at Mac Jones that way, maybe he should be towards the very bottom, but he's been more productive, had more like explosive plays than those guys. So those guys are kind of doing that, and they don't have explosive plays. Kenny Pickett at 25. I'm pretty disappointed in Kenny Pickett, and this is before I had to get ahead of myself in making these rankings, this video. Even though this is gonna end up going up on Friday. I'm very busy at the end of this week. Danny Provolone, who's on the channel, was on the channel with us, is getting married, so that's why we're busy. But yeah, so this is my rankings here are before the Thursday night game, so that won't play a part in these. But so maybe Pickett tears it up against a good Titans defense, and that could boost his stock for the end of the year when I make these rankings. But I've been pretty disappointed with him. I actually, going into this year, all of a sudden I got a feeling from him, and seeing him, sling the ball in preseason. I know it's preseason, but he looked confident. I thought he was going to be much better in this. This is kind of right around where he's actually probably worse than my prospect, because I had a second round grade on him. That second round's a pretty good player. So, But this is pretty close to my prospect evaluation, but he still has time to pick it up. And people are complaining about the play calling. Yes, it's not great, but the play caller is also limited because the quarterback has been very limited. So they're kind of working against each other right now. So there is some blame to Kenny Pickett. He's got some really good receivers. He's going to have to distribute the ball better. He's got to relax in the pocket, a little panicky. Not seeing the field correctly. He looks panicky when going through his progressions and with his footwork in the pocket. It's just not the guy I expected going into this year, but he definitely has some time to figure it out. We'll see how he does in Thursday Night Football with, against a pretty good defense. But, and maybe he's looked a tiny bit better than his stats. It's debatable, I guess. My thing is that, you could say the Steelers have been winning ball games for the most part. They're a pretty decent team. And that's kind of looks good for the quarterback. But how much has Kenny Pickett been responsible for? The games they're winning in clutch fashion with pass rush, creating turnovers. So how much has he actually been responsible for? The next group of guys, Bryce Young's at 24. He's starting to pick it up a little bit. If I did these rankings a few weeks ago, he would have been worse than this. But he's starting to pick it up a little bit. I still want to see more. Actually, a true test against the Colts this week because the Colts defense has been struggling. So I expect this to be Bryce. This has to be Bryce Young's best game this week. It's all eyes on him for me this week. This is a true test, and see what he, to kind of see if he could continue to get better, but see if what he can become here, because this is this game, because he could light it up, and then people may think, okay, that's what he's going to be, but he's playing a weaker defense. He just has to play good in this upcoming game. So this game will kind of determine, be a big piece on where he's ranked at the end of the year, but the rest of the games will be as well. But he started off struggling a little bit, but he's a rookie, so that's okay. Has been doing a little bit better. He's been, getting the ball a little bit quicker. He's been accurate. I don't think accuracy really hasn't been great. No, but it's been getting better too. But it has not been an issue for Bryce Young. The arm talent has not been an issue. I think there's a lot of his scrambles have been weird, and his decisions in the pocket. When to take off, when not to take off. That's been his worst part, and he's kind of circling and going backwards on some of these pressured plays. He has to do much. It's a big thing what's going to decide who's great, who's not in terms of quarterback play in the NFL. Who can play great when all things aren't well, and who can play well against pressure, who can handle pressure. I don't think he's handled it too well. He's also had a minor injury pop up. I don't love that they have to take him out in short yardage. If you have like a Taysom Hill type guy, then it makes sense. But you got a guy that you put that much value in to take first overall, and you have to take him out. It's showing a little bit of lack of trust from the offense. So it's a small thing, but it's just something that doesn't sit well with me. But he's been playing better, and I would expect him to continue to play better because he is a very talented player. He really is. So, I guess good signs moving forward. Again, big game against the Colts here. He's got to do better, with his decisions in the pocket. When to take off, when not to take off, when to scramble, when to get outside the pocket. Stop making the loops and going backwards. Like those are the big things for Bryce Young so far. Justin Fields at 23, and now he's starting to miss games. He thought he was going to be healthy for this week, but they said they want to see more Tyson Bagent. Maybe there's a reason for that, but Fields. Yeah, we knew that all along that he has a ton of talent, but will he be able to figure it out? And it's just he really hasn't been able to figure it out still. He's holding on to that Washington game. A lot of these guys down at the bottom, there's not much splitting them up. If he doesn't have that Washington Commanders game, we're probably considering Justin Fields in the bottom three because that game was pretty damn good for him, but it's one game. The other games was, full of not executing in the end when it matters most, holding on to the ball way too long. Him and Sam Howell probably hold on to the ball way longer than anybody I've ever seen. So taking really bad sacks, majority of the pressure and the sacks are on him rather than the offensive line. Not seeing open receivers earlier in the year. I thought he's done a little bit better job doing that recently, but it just seems like a lot of the same things, and that's why maybe they're taking more of a look at Bagent, and that they'll be looking at a quarterback in the first round. But he has the talent's in there somewhere. We're not doubting his arm talent or his athletic ability. It's just a lot of the same stuff which you wish he would kind of step up. But the Commanders game was something. And again, that game's pushing him up above the guys below him, because if it wasn't for that game, and he's missed games, given that to factor that in as well. But so that's tough. Deshaun Watson at 22. When he was healthy to start there, he looked pretty good. The Tennessee game, I thought, was the best game I've seen from Deshaun Watson in a Browns uniform, which that's not saying much, but it was a great game. He's had games, even where if you look at the box score and the stats weren't super great, if you watch the games were better than maybe again with the box score would show. I thought he won like extending plays, getting outside the pocket, using his legs a little bit, extending, getting first downs, extending drives. And he's made some good throws as well. Then he's had some bad moments. I don't know if he's had like a complete bad game. No, that's why he's, I guess, probably the trickiest guy to rank on this whole list because he's missed games, and I think he's been better than what his stats show. If you watch the games, has he been great? No. Other the Titans game was great. If he doesn't miss games, he would be ranked much better than this. That's kind of what it comes down to. 21, Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew's had some bad moments here and there. Some turnovers. But I think he's been better than expected overall. I mean, they've been putting up points. I think a lot of it is Steichen's system, and mainly the running game, but Gardner Minshew's playing in that system. He's making some things happen, but and he's extending plays as well with his legs. I think he's really smart when it comes to knowing when to get outside the pocket and as well. So I think he's been a little bit better than expected. And he's gotten them some wins. He's had to come in off the bench and he's gotten them some wins. So he's been okay. There's been some bad moments, and there's been some moments where it's like, all right, if they actually might have been better off with Minshew over Richardson there. But then there's been some moments like you kind of wish Richardson was in there. They probably would have executed a little bit better in like a certain situation. So it's kind of back and forth with that. But he is at 21. Next group of guys, Josh Dobbs actually been better than expected. I think lately, though, he's kind of come down to earth. Kind of looks a little bit more like Josh Dobbs. I guess the last couple weeks, and that's why it sounds like the Cardinals are going a different direction at quarterback now. But overall, like you put the whole beginning of the season together, or the whole first half of the season together, he's actually been pretty solid. For being Josh Dobbs, and he's been pretty efficient. He's used his legs quite a bit. He's won with his legs. Look at the Cowboys game too. Winning in different ways. They're able to run a different variety of plays because of him. And then given the Cardinals they don't really have the most talent in the world, he's definitely played way better than expected. Again, it's tough. If this was like rankings a few weeks ago, he probably would have been a lot better than 20, but he's kind of came back down to earth over the last few weeks. So that's kind of the tough part. And then that kind of made the Cardinals come back, kind of look like who we thought they would be, even though they are tougher than expected. 19, Russell Wilson, definitely better than last year, as he should be, because he was towards the very bottom based on last year. I think, the touchdown interception ratio looks pretty decent for him right now, given what he did last year. It's not everything, though. But yeah, he's been okay. He's been all right. I think my big issue with him, what's kind of stopping him from being ranked higher, is I think, crucial moments, and especially in bigger games, like comes down like third down, fourth down, crucial moments in the game, depending on time, the situation. I don't know if he's executing that well. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't know. I haven't seen him execute that well. He's a lot of moments where he's hold on to the ball too long, or he's thinking like, should I run? Should I scramble? Should I throw it? He's a little hesitant to throw in a tight window in the situations, and he kind of either takes a sack or runs, and it's a bad decision to run. Some mistakes Jordan Love's making. He's a younger guy, but Russell Wilson's been much better than him. But he's at 19. Sam Howell's at 18. Now, Sam Howell's pretty terrible with taking these sacks. His offensive line's not great, but there's a lot of sacks that are definitely on him, holding the ball too long. Interesting decisions with his scrambling, with his moves, going deeper, holding the ball too much, not getting it out. And he's on pace to break a record for quarterback sacks, and that's not all on the offensive line. When that happens, a lot of it is on the quarterback. So that's kind of the bad with Sam Howell, but he's very productive. He has these wild, flashy throws, which we saw at it's the same stuff we saw at North Carolina. He's the same player. Usually quarterbacks end up being the same player. Like, you develop them more, but they kind of end up being the same player, and that's kind of what I see here. Sam Howell, like super explosive to the air, wild plays, hit that home run, right? Could put up some production, could put up some points, but then going to take those bad sacks. He'll have some bad turnovers here and there, and then can he execute consistently? Can he execute in the big games against the big teams? So that's why it's tough. The lows are pretty low, but the highs are pretty high. Luckily, there's not a long list of, really the quarterback play, is pretty bad this year. There's less than half I feel great about. Definitely less than half. But Sam Howell coming in at 18 is pretty decent for him having limited starts. Derek Carr starting to pick it up a little bit more. He's had some underwhelming moments. I don't know if he's ever had really bad moments this year, though. That's why I do think he separates himself from the guys ranked below him. I think he's like firmly, and like that's why I said going into this video, everybody felt like firmly in their spot, which sometimes I argue with myself, like, ooh, this guy 17, this guy 18. There was none of that with this one. Like, everyone's in their spots. Like, that's why I'm calling these the rankings. It's where everyone belongs. But I think Carr can climb up. I think he can make a climb here because he's starting to play a little bit better. There was a lack of chemistry. Not all of it was on him. Some of it on the receiver, some of it on Carmichael. But sometimes holding the ball a little bit too long, sometimes off target, sometimes insisting on checking it down. A lot of the times kind of like that, but he's starting to pick it up a little bit. We'll see if he can continue to climb. He is at 17. Next group of guys, Baker at 16. Baker is starting to come back down to earth a little bit. He had a portion of this year where he was probably top 10, like just in the top 10, but he was because he's playing some pretty good football, like flashy moments. What I loved about Baker is like he was finding ways to win. Like there's some quarterbacks that take games away from teams or not be able to, they can't really execute at the end of games, but Baker was executing when he needed to, being clutch in big time moments, and that's kind of was making him like just in like a borderline top 10 quarterback, but starting to go south, starting to come back down to earth. He hasn't really been awful, but just not executing like he was earlier in the year. He's at 16. Geno Smith, Seahawks are winning. They're hot right now, but Geno Smith's maybe not playing as well as he was earlier in the year. He'll make a crazy flashy throw here and there, but yeah, he's had some turnovers in some bad spots, but he's still much better than who's ranked below him. He's pretty close to Baker, I'd say, but they are winning. He's getting the job done when he needs to. Dak at 14. Dak's had some really good moments, and he's had some moments where the Cowboys don't really need him. They're winning, so he's kind of lacking the production there. And then, there's been some games where like big moments he struggled a little bit. 49ers, he was pretty damn terrible. Cardinals game just couldn't execute enough. So kind of a little bit of everything with Dak. Want to see him stay more consistent. He'll have a true test against the Eagles this week. CJ Stroud at 13, coming off probably his worst game of the season. Things that I haven't seen from him at Ohio State or this year yet. A lot of holding on to the ball too long, taking some bad sacks, and just not doing enough. But before that, he's been great. He's been very efficient. You look at the touchdown-interception ratio. He's been very, very accurate. He's been very good in the pocket besides last game. Knowing when to maneuver, get the ball out on time, knowing when to get out of the pocket. So 13 for a rookie. I'd say that's pretty damn good. So hopefully we don't see more of that last game, which it wasn't a god-awful game, anything like that. Hopefully we don't see any more of that, back to the normal thing. Maybe he wasn't, the bye week, knocking off the rust, a young guy. Usually those younger guys, the bye week doesn't really help them any more than the other guys. So maybe we'll go with that, but that didn't factor into these rankings. But he's been very solid, especially for a rookie. So 13 ahead of, Dak. Geno looks pretty good for CJ Stroud. Next group of quarterbacks, Matt Stafford at 12. I want to say Matthew Stafford has looked better than his stats show because he's had some beautiful throws, some clutch throws. He's still got that arm. Some doubted that from him. Again, just, maneuvering in the pocket around pressure sometimes. It's like, okay. Sometimes it's like, it's a younger Stafford. What's going on? And that's why I say I want to say he looks better with the stats show. And I guess that's true, but there are some moments where you'll have a bad interception. And I think the Steelers game, starting the second half of the interception, I think that costed the entire team that game. So there are moments like that, So there's moments that say, and he's been very productive. There's moments that say top 5. So I'm not, him being at 12 really isn't because the touchdown interception ratio, which does not look good. I think in that department he actually looks better than what that says. But he's more so 12 because he's had, the moments in the moments, have been a little costly. Brock Purdy, I do top 10 quarterbacks for our Twitter subscribers every week. He's actually seen number 1 at one point this year because he had a stretch where he was fantastic, getting better and better, getting the ball out on time, making big-time plays, winning ball games, which is big it should be for everyone when it comes to quarterbacks. But he's kind of went south. He went south a little bit. He has another guy. Has he been just god-awful? No. But he has hurt his team. They had opportunities to win some of these games. He's turned it over in crucial situations. Teams are starting to game plan a little more properly for him. What I was loving, he was like getting better. He's improving in different scenarios, but now he's not. So that's the tough part. I'm sure him and the 49ers will click and they'll figure it out. But recently, his recent play has kind of pushed him down. He was towards the top. For a bit. Joe Burrow starting to climb. I'm going to predict that as long as he's healthy, when we're ranking these at the end of the year, he'll be better than 10 because Joe Burrow in general is better than 10. He started off a little slow. He was injured. He does have an excuse, but that doesn't mean we can put him ahead of guys. Just everyone's ranked on based on where they've played. So he had a tough stretch there. Did have a legitimate excuse, but he's starting to play much, much better. Big game against the 49ers. 49ers got a good defense. I like they kind of playing more man all year, and they started mixing more zone to try to throw him off, and it did not faze him at all. He understood everything. He was reading everything on the fly, playing really good football. That's Joe Burrow right there. That's the elite Joe Burrow that I think is the number 2 quarterback in football when in general. He's going to get there. Hopefully he stays healthy because that's the only thing that's stopping him. So he's because again, like I said, I've been ranking top 10 quarterbacks each week, updated each week for our Twitter subscribers. He has not been in the top 10 yet, but now he is in the top 10 going into this week. Justin Herbert at 9, and Herbert's had some bad moments actually, but he still makes big plays. He's still very productive, and there's not a long list of quarterbacks that have been playing great too, like we see here. So he comes in at number 9. Stepped it up last week. We know he's capable of being better than 9. I think the injuries affected him as well. We talk about Joe Burrow. I think Burrow's, the leg's a little bit more serious than your, non-throwing hand, but still he's been productive the whole way. Very productive. He's helped win his team some games, even though they haven't won a lot. He's kind of been the reason for it as well. And he's had some mistakes here and there. You want to see him in tight games. You want to see him make big plays at the end of games and close out games if we want to nitpick here. But yeah, again, he's had some hiccups here and there, but there's not a long list of very good quarterbacks so far this year. Next, Jared Goff at 8, and Jared Goff was actually much higher. Again, like I said, I ranked top 10 every single week. He was as high as 2. He was looking really, really good. I think that Bucs game was incredible. Tampa Bay Buccaneers game was incredible. Kind of adjusting on the fly, getting better as the game went on, throwing some good deep balls. I think, the Ravens game, he really struggled. He even struggled a bit in the Raiders game, which they just won, though, because the running game. So when teams properly, prepare for him, like he could be beat a little bit, but he's been playing very solid, been very accurate. The production's been there. I thought he was better in the first half of the year, like the first quarter of the season than he is maybe right now, but he's still been very solid. 5, 6, 7 are all in the same boat. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. They're all in the same boat right now. They're all in general like probably better than 5, 6, 7. Like if we're starting a new season, like they're all great quarterbacks. Maybe an understatement. But talking all 3 combined, great quarterbacks. And they have all had great elite moments throughout this year, helped their team win games. That's why they're up here. They've been great. They've been good. They've made flashy elite plays. But they all have been a little sloppy, a little sloppier than I expected them to this year. Mahomes has had his bad moments. He had the flu against the Broncos, but still bad game. The Jets was a rough game as well. He still won them games. He still makes those elite Patrick Mahomes throws. He's winning with his legs quite a bit. Josh Allen, same thing. He's had some games where he's missed some throws or throwing the ball. Josh Allen's more climbing, I'd say, because he started. First game of the year was pretty rough. Not using his legs as much. We saw a little bit more against the Bucs last Thursday, as well. And then Jalen Hurts, winning with his legs, obviously, having some wild throws, but he's turned the ball over, quite a bit more than expected. And, there was a period there where it's like he was pretty much the same with his touchdowns, interceptions. And the Jets game, I actually thought, he actually did the opposite of what he's supposed to do. I thought they lost that game because of Jalen Hurts at the end of the game, even throughout the game with the turnovers. But at the end of the game, he's got a punt and they probably win. But he does what you just cannot do. So these types of quarterbacks, you expect them to single-handedly win games, and they've have. But yeah, again, Hurts has had that one moment where it's like he kind of took the game away from his team. But these guys have been playing. He's off a great game against Washington. Overall, these guys are ranked in the top 7 for a reason. They're great quarterbacks. They've played great. They've won their team games because great or elite moments. They're just not 1, 2, 3, which they're capable of being. They're just not there right now because of the sloppy moments, is my point. So they're all pretty much in the same boat. They really are. So I got Patrick Mahomes 5, Josh Allen 6, Jalen Hurts 7. I think there's been times where Patrick Mahomes looks like that number 1 player in football that he is. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, have they looked like that number 1 player in football? Maybe not. There's been times where they've been pretty close, though. So I guess that's what's kind of splitting them up. I just think Patrick Mahomes has been slightly better than Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen's been slightly better than Jalen Hurts, but pretty damn close. And on to the top 4 for on this year and this year only. Trevor Lawrence comes in at number 4, been very efficient, very accurate, big-time playability for the Jaguars. There's been some games where it's like a little boring, I guess, where they never really need him to do a whole lot, though. Like, they're in position to win. There's been some games where he probably would have done more, but his receivers dropped the ball. That was more earlier in the year. So I think he's on the brink of actually being one, even like better than this. I think he'll climb. He'll hop number 3 because number 3 is out for the year. But yeah, there's been some games where maybe he's a little quiet. They didn't really need him a whole lot. So I guess that hurts the production a little bit, which production isn't everything, but it means something little. So he's been fantastic, making some big boy throws as he should. He's at number 4. Kirk Cousins, unfortunately, finishes the year at number 3. He was starting to play the best ball and he was good for the beginning portion of the year. He's had some turnovers. A lot of it was fumbles by other players with the Vikings, though, that were costly. But yeah, he had a bad pick 6 against the Panthers, but he was super productive and super efficient, making big time plays, putting the Vikings in position to win. He's going out there and winning them games. Sometimes they don't even win because of other parts. But and then he started picking up to another level. I think the offensive line starting to protect him a little bit better, which he hasn't had his whole career in Minnesota, and they started to play at a very high level, and he's starting to play at an elite level, winning ball games, making some incredible throws the last few weeks as the Vikings start to get on a win streak. And right when they get hot, and I think a lot of it's because Kirk Cousins, no Justin Jefferson too. People always say, well, Kirk's good, but he has Justin Jefferson. They take Justin Jefferson out, he's balling. He's making. And I know Jordan Addison's very good himself, but he's making Jordan Addison look great. So Kirk proved something there, and he proved that if he gets some more time, finally, which he did, he can make some big things happen. He was starting to prove a lot and play the best ball he's ever played, and he gets a fluke freak injury. It's a shame. So Kirk Cousins won't be on the rankings at the end of the year, but he has been playing some incredible football, and the Vikings were starting to get hot because of him and other things too. Defense better than last year, but because of Kirk Cousins, it's a shame. But there's your top 2. I think the top 4, like these were the top 4 guys. Based on this year, I think the other guys were too sloppy to be in the top 4. These were your top 4 guys. But Tua at number 2. I guess what's keeping Tua from being number 1, in the bigger games against the better teams, I want him to execute a little bit more. Take care. He has some sloppy turnovers too, maybe not as much as some of those other guys we talked about. Him and Kirk Cousins are pretty much having the same year. Like if you look at like the stats, it's not all about stats, but stats, production, and they'll have some sloppy moments here and there, not as much as some of the other guys that the elite quarterbacks that were used to being at the top. I do think Kirk probably shows up against better teams better than Tua right now. But Tua's making some special elite throws, like play after play. He's also healthy right now. He's also won some more games, so that's kind of they're pretty much in the same boat. But that's kind of what's splitting them up. And Tua, a lot. I've been ranking quarterbacks for Twitter subscribers top 10 every single week. Who had number 1 spot most times this week? Tua's had the most number 1 spot most times this week. But this week, going into week 9, Lamar Jackson happens to be number 1. He is balling right now. He is really taking off in this Todd Monken offense. He's winning games. It's on. They are winning defense too, but because of him, it starts with him. It's not somebody else isn't picking him up. It's and other guys are making plays, but it is Lamar Jackson's team, and you see that. And he's elevating as and improving as a passer. We know he wins with his legs. He throws off defenses. He's very tough to game plan for, but he's getting going. The Ravens are one of the hottest teams in football right now, and it starts with that man right there. So really excited about that. So as of right now, this week through half the year, based on only this year, Lamar Jackson's won, and the next 3 are pretty close. They're pretty close, but. Yeah, Kirk won't be there at the end of the year because he's out for the year, so it's unfortunate. I would imagine guys like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, these guys get back towards the top, and it's crunch time. It's when ball matters most. It's fight for the playoffs. It's who can go out there, which quarterbacks can go out there and execute, win games, who can take the next step, do more, play great, and be the reason teams win games. That's what I'm looking for. That's why winning and losing matters quite a bit when it comes to quarterbacks, for me, but it should be it's just in general why it does. So those are the quarterback rankings. Again, these just there was really no argument with myself. Everyone is in the right spot. Everyone slid right in the right spot. I'm sure people will find a way to argue, but this is, what it is based on, how the quarterbacks have played this year. And some idiots will probably try to say, like, use past years as reference. That's not what this is at all. But those are the quarterback rankings. Again, we're at that halfway spot. It still will kind of feel like halfway through the year after this week, so we'll have some more mid-season type videos for you guys. Since we're past that trade deadline, we have content all on that as well. But that is going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.